to Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio with your host, Darren Fatman McDuffie. And now, prepare to get fat. Hey, what's cracking, and welcome back to another episode of Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio, brought to you by I'mTheFatMan.com. I'm your host, Darren McDuffie, and as always, it's good to hear you again. Or I can't see you, but I want to say it's good to hear you. And if you haven't connected with me, please do so. You can connect with me on Facebook.com/I'mTheFatMan, and fat is spelled with a PH. You can also connect with me on Twitter at @thefat_man, not dash, it's an _man. And also you can connect with me on Google Plus as the Fat Man on Google Plus. So interesting week this week. I'm actually doing a lot of research on vitamin D, and I'm going to put up a post on I'mTheFatMan.com about vitamin D. Very, very important nutrient. If you don't know about that nutrient, then I suggest you would go on the blog tomorrow and just read on the importance of vitamin D. Especially if you're African American, you really, really need to pay attention to vitamin D and the deficiencies that you have in vitamin D, as well as the world. Most of us are vitamin D deficient. We can use some time in the sun. So, really excited tonight. This is something that I'm passionate about. I found out about this probably 2 to 3 years ago, and wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront with the show tonight, because I'm figuring out that a lot of people don't know about this issue. I was in Publix one day and just happened to be talking to a woman, and I said, do you know what genetically modified organisms are, genetically modified ingredients? And she had no idea what genetically modified organisms are. And the sad thing about this is that a lot of this stuff is being placed in our food, and we have no knowledge of it. So tonight I have Trish Sheldon, and Trish is going to come on, and she's going to talk about genetically modified organisms, and more importantly, she's going to talk about what you can do to start educating yourself and start taking some action when it comes to having these things labeled on our food. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Trish on. Hey, Trish, are you there?
Hi, Darren. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good show. I know that we connected. We were actually Facebook friends for a number of years, and but not years, but for a long time. We never really got to meet in person, and then they had a rally here not long ago where Trish was part of that, and Jeffrey Smith from Seeds of Deception. If you have not checked that documentary out, that's a very good documentary. And she happened to be there along with Jeffrey Smith, and we finally got a chance to meet face to face. And I wanted to get Trish on the show so she can just give us a little education about genetically modified organisms. So, Trish, tell us a little bit of how you got involved with this whole thing.
Sure. I heard about the economic loss to farmers from an unapproved genetically modified variety of rice, and subsequently there was a $750,000 $1 million lawsuit with Bayer Crop Science. So I thought that was horrendous. I was volunteering with Greenpeace at the time, and I just couldn't believe that. And then I had found out that human DNA was in an outdoor experiment was leaked into our rice supply. So genes based on the DNA of humans. So I really realized how risky that could be. And from there, I just started researching and reading more and more about it.
Yeah, you've become really involved. You're kind of out in the forefront. I know we've had a number of rallies here in South Florida. And I know one of the big things that happened, and it was defeated, that was out in California, but you're working with that now. You're trying to get something into Congress here in Florida, into legislature here in Florida, where you're wanting GMOs to be labeled, in the state of Florida. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, yeah. So we were helping out with Prop 37 at the time in California, and then one by one joining a coalition of states across the United States. And so with that, and we now have 30 groups also in our state that are working on this issue. So we have partnered with Food and Water Watch, and we have House Bill 1 that's we are asking our representatives to co-sponsor House Bill 1, and that would be like Katie Edwards, Kevin Rader's signed on. We want Matt Caldwell, Elizabeth Porter, Betty Reed, Rick Rooney, Clovis Watson, Jim Boyd. So if everyone could make a call to their representatives and let them know this is really important to us, at least we should have this right to know. We also have a Senate bill, which is Senate Bill 558, and this was introduced from Jeremy Ring this year, end of last year, actually, December 20th. And guess what? Eleanor Sobel, as you're aware, has finally, we've been working a long time on her, and she's finally decided to co-sponsor. And so we feel we have a lot of ground with the Senate bill. So equally, we want to encourage our senators and representatives this is important to us and to help co-sponsor these bills.
Really funny story about Eleanor Sobel. I remember she's real active in the teaching union down here at one point, and my girlfriend, Robin, was speaking with her, and Robin happened to ask her if she knew anything about genetically modified organisms. I think this was probably a year and a half ago, and Robin comes back to me, and Robin's like, I can't believe she doesn't know anything about genetically modified organisms. And I said, and half of the population doesn't know about genetically modified organisms. So as a segue into that, can you kind of give us a brief, you kind of touched on this at the beginning of human strand of DNA being kind of grafted into rice, but can you give us just a short synopsis of what genetically modified organisms are?
Sure, yes. A GMO is a genetically modified organism. So this is generally made in a lab. These are genes from species of maybe insect, animals, could be human DNA, viruses, bacteria, such as, maybe E. coli, used as an active ingredient to break the species barrier. And so you could use a gene gun to break the species barrier, or maybe an agrobacterium. And so this is in an attempt to obtain a desired trait. So, and these crops are either engineered to be sprayed with the pesticide or to make their own pesticide in every bite. And the reason is this, that the biotech industry will state that it's because they want this desired trait. However, when you're expressing DNA, you really have no idea what you're unleashing, and you can't tell it what to do the same way every time, using these different viruses and bacteria. So we really have no idea, and actually what we're seeing are hundreds to thousands of strands of mutations per strand of DNA. So, and I work in the health and wellness community, so when you understand, your gut flora and the important role that it plays in your health and your immune system, and you're eating these foods that aren't really foods, they're actually, viruses, bacteria, your body, when you eat them, says this is a foreign invader, attack. So you're leaking these allergens potentially into your bloodstream. Gluten also is another, problem. However, mostly not genetically modified at this moment. There are some secret test crops that were infiltrated into the wheat supply, but that as well, the GMOs are poking holes in the intestinal tract, leaking wheat and leaking other foods into the bloodstream, causing further allergies to foods that we would never have been allergic to in the first place. And why do they do this? Well, as I had mentioned, the biotech industry says that this is for a desired trait. However, really, it's for farmers need to pay a royalty in order to have seeds. They're not allowed to save seeds anymore. So there's a patent on the seed.